The thing about gods is that they bleed. Nathaniel Essex had learned this truth across centuries of existence, cutting into divine flesh with scalpels both literal and metaphorical. He had dissected the pretenders who called themselves Apocalypse's chosen. He had vivisected those who believed their X gene made them superior. And now, standing in the shadow of Vought Tower as it pierced the Manhattan skyline like a monument to manufactured divinity, he felt that familiar hunger stir within his immortal bones. This world's gods were particularly pathetic. They bled, certainly, but more importantly, they were purchased. Sinister had arrived in this reality 3 days ago through means that would take a doctoral thesis to explain and a lifetime to replicate. Dimensional barriers, temporal anomalies, the usual scientific poetry that accompanied traveling between universes. The specifics mattered less than the discovery he'd made within hours of his arrival. In this world, superhuman abilities weren't evolved, they were injected. Compound V. Even the name was pedestrian. He stood now in a darkened alley across from a Vought International Distribution Center, his pale skin and red diamond marking hidden beneath a long coat and wide-brimmed hat. Victorian affectation meeting modern stealth. The security was impressive by this world's standards. Biometric scanners, armed guards with military-grade weaponry, cameras covering every angle. For a civilization that hadn't even cracked viable genetic engineering until recently, they'd built an adequate fortress around their precious serum. Adequate wouldn't stop him. Sinister's telepathic senses unfurled like invisible tendrils, mapping the minds inside the facility. 12 guards, 4 scientists working late. Security protocols updated hourly, randomized patrol patterns, panic buttons connected directly to Vaught's superhuman response teams. The corporation that manufactured heroes had learned to fear what it couldn't: control. They were about to learn that fear was insufficient preparation. He moved with supernatural grace, crossing the street in the span between heartbeats. The first camera never registered his presence. A minor telepathic suggestion convinced it to loop its previous 30 seconds indefinitely. The biometric scanner at the side entrance received similar treatment, its AI primitive enough that Sinister's mental manipulation felt almost insulting in its ease. The door clicked open. Sinister stepped into the fluorescent-lit corridor, and the scent of antiseptic and fear filled his nostrils. This place stored something valuable, something that made even the guards nervous. He could taste their anxiety in the psychic atmosphere. Perfect. A guard rounded the corner, and Sinister didn't break stride. The man's mind folded like wet paper under the gentlest telepathic pressure, a suggestion that he'd seen nothing, heard nothing, and should return to his post with a nagging sense that he'd forgotten something unimportant. The guard walked past, oblivious to the Victorian-dressed predator who'd just rewritten his immediate memory. Sinister descended into the facility's lower levels, following the psychic signatures of concentrated anxiety. Scientists feared their work. That fear was a compass pointing toward breakthrough or catastrophe, and Sinister had learned to follow it like a bloodhound. The laboratory vault sat behind 6 inches of reinforced steel and a locking mechanism that would have impressed him if he'd been limited to physical entry. Instead, Sinister placed one pale hand against the door and let his telekinetic power flow through the metal, feeling the tumblers and circuits like a surgeon feeling for a tumor. Twist here, pressure there, a gentle push to convince the electronic lock that it had received the correct authorization code. The vault door swung open with a pneumatic hiss. Inside, refrigerated cases lined the walls, each containing rows of blue vials that glowed softly in the sterile light. Compound V, thousands of doses, enough to create an army of superhumans, or in the right hands, enough raw material to understand the fundamental flaw in this world's approach to evolution. Sinister's lips curved into something that might charitably be called a smile. He grabbed a reinforced case, loaded it with 24 vials, and was turning to leave when the alarms finally screamed to life. Red emergency lighting flooded the vault. Apparently, removing the vials from their temperature-controlled environment triggered a secondary security protocol. Clever, if ultimately futile. Intruder in Sub-Level 3, initiating lockdown, superhuman response team en route. The computerized voice echoed through the facility with bureaucratic efficiency. Sinister checked his pocket watch. An affectation, but style mattered, and calculated he had approximately 90 seconds before this world's so-called heroes arrived. He had no intention of being here when they did. Not yet. First impressions mattered, and he preferred to make his debut after he understood exactly what he'd stolen. Sinister phased through the vault door. Molecular manipulation was such a useful application of telekinesis, and began his ascent. Guards converged on his position, shouting commands and training weapons that might inconvenience a normal human. Sinister was many things, but normal hadn't applied to him since Queen Victoria sat on England's throne. He raised one hand and 3 guards simply stopped. Their minds went blank, bodies frozen mid-stride like mannequins. Another guard managed to fire. The bullet hung suspended in the air 3 inches from Sinister's face, vibrating with arrested kinetic energy. He plucked it from the air, examined it with academic curiosity, then flicked it back with enough telekinetic force to embed it in the concrete wall. "Crude," he murmured, "but I suppose you work with what you have." The exit loomed ahead. Sinister could hear the distinctive sound of helicopter rotors and feel the approaching psychic signatures of beings with enhanced biology. Vought's cavalry was arriving. Time to leave. He burst through the exterior door into the New York night and immediately leaped upward, telekinesis launching him to the rooftop of the adjacent building. Behind him, the facility erupted with activity, searchlights, sirens, the organized chaos of a corporation realizing it had been violated. From his elevated vantage point, Sinister watched a figure descend from the sky. Red, white, and blue costume, cape billowing dramatically, landing with enough force to crack the pavement. The psychic signature was immense, artificially enhanced, certainly, but powerful nonetheless. Homelander had arrived. Sinister permitted himself a moment of observation. This creature radiated narcissism like heat from a furnace, his mind a cesspool of ego and barely controlled violence. Fascinating. They'd created a god with the emotional maturity of a child. "Whoever you are," Homelander's voice carried across the distance, amplified to boom across the block. "You just fucked with the wrong company." Sinister's smile widened. He raised his stolen case in mocking salute, then stepped backward off the roof's edge. He didn't fall. He flew, telekinesis providing lift and momentum, disappearing into the Manhattan shadows before Homelander could process what he'd seen. Behind him, he felt the hero's confusion spike into rage, heard the supersonic boom as the caped fool launched into pursuit. But Sinister had centuries of experience evading those who believed themselves superior. By the time Homelander determined a search pattern, the geneticist was already miles away, descending into an abandoned subway station he'd prepared for precisely this contingency. In the darkness, surrounded by century-old brick and the ghost of old New York, Mister Sinister opened his case and held up a vial of Compound V. The blue liquid seemed to pulse with potential. "Now then," he whispered to the darkness, "let's see what you really are." The abandoned laboratory had been a Centers for Disease Control facility before budget cuts and bureaucratic incompetence left it to rot beneath Staten Island. Sinister had claimed it within hours of arriving in this universe, appreciating the irony of using this world's failed attempt at disease control to conduct his own brand of viral evolution. He set up his equipment with the precision of someone who'd done this across a dozen realities and twice as many centuries. Electron microscope, Primitive but functional. Centrifuge. Genetic sequencer that would have been cutting edge in this world 5 years ago and was laughably outdated by his standards. No matter. A master surgeon could operate with rusty scalpels if necessary. The first vial of Compound 5 sat in a titanium holder beneath the microscope's lens. Sinister leaned forward, his red diamond casting crimson light across the instrumentation, and whispered a command. The machinery hummed to life, samples splitting and spinning and revealing their secrets under his enhanced perception. His telepathic abilities let him interface directly with the equipment, reading data as it generated, cross-referencing against his centuries of accumulated genetic knowledge. What he saw made him laugh. Actually laugh, a sound that echoed off the concrete walls like broken glass. Oh, you beautiful, stupid monkeys. Compound V was elegant in its brutality. A cocktail of growth hormones, gene-altering retroviruses, and what appeared to be exotic matter that his instruments couldn't quite classify. It forcibly rewrote human DNA, activating dormant genetic potential while simultaneously creating entirely new biological systems. The human body wasn't designed to process this kind of transformation. The mortality rate among infants who received it must be catastrophic. But those who survived, the formula triggered superhuman abilities by essentially turning the human body into its own mutagenic engine. Flight, strength, regeneration, energy projection. The specific manifestations seemed partially random, influenced by the subject's existing genetic predispositions and neurological patterns. It was brilliant. It was revolutionary. It was also catastrophically flawed. Sinister's fingers flew across his keyboard, isolating the compound's components. The growth hormone base was simple enough, designed to force rapid cellular development in infants. The retrovirus vector was crude but effective, using the body's own replication mechanisms to spread the genetic changes. But that exotic matter, that strange element that his instruments registered as something between energy and physical substance. Fascinating, he murmured, extracting a sample into a fresh vial. You've stumbled onto something your tiny brains can barely comprehend. The exotic matter seemed to interact with human neural tissue in ways that suggested extra-dimensional properties. It didn't just alter genetics. It created new biological pathways that shouldn't be possible within standard physics. The subjects weren't just enhanced humans. They were humans who'd been partially rewritten to interface with something other. Sinister spent 6 hours dissecting the formula, his immortal body requiring no rest as he worked. By the time dawn light started filtering through the facility's grimy windows, he'd identified 47 distinct components and understood the synthesis process well enough to replicate it. He could also see the formula's fundamental flaw: instability. Compound V created superhumans, yes, but it did so through brute force genetic restructuring. The subjects' bodies were in constant low-level conflict, their altered DNA trying to revert to baseline human, while the exotic matter kept forcing the changes. Over time, this would cause cellular degradation, psychological instability, and eventual systemic collapse. These manufactured gods had expiration dates. No wonder they need constant public approval, Sinister mused, loading a fresh sample into his sequencer. Psychological reinforcement to combat biological rejection. The ego must remain strong or the body falls apart. How deliciously pathetic. His instruments beeped. The genetic sequencer had finished mapping the complete genome of Compound V's retrovirus vector. Sinister pulled up the data and felt something rare stir in his chest. Genuine surprise. The formula wasn't entirely artificial. Someone had used a biological template, a naturally occurring superhuman genome, as the foundation. The exotic matter and engineered components were built onto an existing genetic structure that shouldn't exist in baseline humanity. "There are natural superhumans in this world," he whispered. "Or there were, and someone found them, mapped them, and used them as the blueprint for mass production. This changed everything. If natural superhumans existed or had existed, their genetics would be stable, perfected through evolution or spontaneous mutation. The key to fixing Compound V's flaws lay in finding that original template and understanding why nature had succeeded where corporate science failed. Sinister began cross-referencing the genetic markers against his own extensive database of mutant DNA collected across his centuries of research. The similarities were striking. This world's natural superhumans shared structural elements with Marvel's X gene, though the expression mechanism was different. Where mutants evolved their abilities through generation, these beings seemed to have spontaneous genetic activation, possibly triggered by environmental factors or... His instruments screamed an alert. Sinister's head snapped up, telepathic senses flaring. Multiple superhuman signatures approaching his location. Fast. 4 distinct minds, each one burning with artificially enhanced biology and varying degrees of intelligence. Vought had found him. He didn't panic. Panic was for mortals who feared death. Instead, Sinister calmly saved his research data to an encrypted thumb drive, pocketed 3 vials of Compound V, and assessed his tactical situation. 4 superhumans. His psychic scan identified their general power signatures. 1 flyer, 1 with enhanced speed, 1 possessing density manipulation, and 1 with electrical projection. A balanced team, probably one of Vaught's secondary hero groups. Not the 7. He would have recognized Homelander's distinctive narcissistic psychic signature, but capable nonetheless. They were converging from above and ground level simultaneously. Professional coordination. Someone at Vought had military training and understood how to deploy superhuman assets. The ceiling exploded inward. A man in an American flag-themed costume dropped through, followed immediately by a woman crackling with blue electricity and another figure whose body seemed to shift between solid and intangible states. The speedster would be outside, cutting off ground-level escape routes. "Mister Sinister," the flag-themed one announced, voice booming with practiced heroic gravitas. "You're under arrest for theft of Vought property and unlawful possession of controlled substances." Sinister raised an eyebrow. "Mister Sinister, my word travels fast, and here I thought I'd been subtle. Vought International has surveillance satellites monitoring all major metropolitan areas," the electric woman said, her eyes glowing with barely contained power. "We tracked your energy signature from Manhattan. Whatever you are, you register like a Class A superhuman threat." "Class A," Sinister repeated, tasting the classification. "How bureaucratic. Tell me, do you children even understand what you're defending? Has Vought explained where your powers come from? How many infants died to perfect the formula running through your veins?" The flag hero's jaw tightened. Hit a nerve there. These corporate gods hated being reminded of their manufactured origins. "We're heroes," he said, but doubt flickered in his psychic signature. "We save lives." "Your products," Sinister corrected gently. "Profitable, photogenic products sold to a public desperate for meaning. But products nonetheless. I'm going to change that." He moved. Telekinesis launched him sideways as lightning scorched the space where he'd stood. The density manipulator tried to grab him mid-flight. Mistake. And Sinister's telepathy crashed into his mind like a sledgehammer. The man screamed and collapsed, his powers fluctuating wildly as Sinister shredded his concentration. The speedster burst through the door, moving faster than sound. Sinister caught him telekinetically, suspended him in midair, and slammed him into the concrete wall with enough force to crack bone. Not enough to kill, death was wasteful when you could study, but enough to incapacitate. "Your powers are impressive," Sinister said conversationally, as electricity and flag-themed fists came at him from both sides. "For corporate knockoffs." He raised both hands. Kinetic force erupted outward in a concussive wave that sent both heroes flying. The electric woman recovered first, hovering in midair as she channeled enough electricity to power a city block. The laboratory equipment began sparking and smoking. "You're destroying your own research," she shouted triumphantly. Sinister smiled. "Backed up remotely 30 seconds after you breached, but thank you for your concern." He hit her with a telepathic assault that bypassed her electrical field entirely. Her mind was weak, poorly trained, vulnerable to psychic intrusion. Within seconds, he'd planted a suggestion. Her teammates were the enemy, hostile forces trying to kill her, threats that must be eliminated immediately. She turned on the flag hero and unleashed a lightning bolt that would have killed a normal human. He dodged, shouting her name, something generic and focus group tested, but she wasn't listening. She was too busy trying to execute the false enemies Sinister had implanted in her perception. "This is what happens when you give power without understanding," Sinister said, walking toward the exit as the two heroes fought each other. "You create weapons without safeties, tools without users, gods without wisdom." The density manipulator was recovering, trying to stand on shaking legs. Sinister paused beside him. "Tell your employers I'll be in touch," he whispered. "I have questions about Compound V's origins, and they're going to answer them, whether they wish to or not." He left through the shattered ceiling, telekinesis carrying him up and away as the hero's battle destroyed what remained of his laboratory. No matter. The research was saved, the samples secured, and now Vought knew they were dealing with something beyond their corporate playbook. Phase 1 complete. Compound V acquired and analyzed. Phase 2 would require different resources. Sinister angled his flight toward Manhattan, toward a lead he'd discovered in Vought's stolen files. A group calling themselves the Boys, vigilantes hunting superheroes, enemies of his enemies. Perhaps they'd be interested in what he could offer. Madeline Stillwell stared at the security footage for the 8th time, watching the pale-skinned figure dismantle 4 of Vought's B-tier heroes like they were children playing dress-up. Her perfectly manicured nails tapped an anxious rhythm against her desk, a tell she normally suppressed, but the past 18 hours had obliterated normal. "Run it again," she said. "Focus on the moment he takes control of voltage." The technician complied. The footage zoomed in on the woman in blue, electricity crackling around her body, and then nothing visible. No energy beam, no physical contact. But her expression shifted from determined to terrified to murderously confused in the span of 3 seconds. Then she turned on her own team. "Telepathy," said the voice behind Madeline. She didn't turn. She'd recognize Stan Edgar's measured tone if she were deaf. The CEO of Vought International moved through the room with the quiet confidence of a man who'd commodified divinity and turned it into quarterly earnings reports. "That's impossible," Madeline said. "Compound V doesn't grant telepathic abilities. We've tested for it. The formula can't breach the blood-brain barrier in a way that would create psychic powers. And yet," Stan gestured to the screen where Sinister was walking away from unconscious heroes, "this individual is clearly doing something that affects their minds directly. Either he's a natural superhuman, which our satellites indicate doesn't exist in the concentration levels he's displaying, or he's something else entirely." Madeline finally turned. Stan Edgar stood in his immaculate suit, face impassive. But she could read the microscopic tension in his shoulders. He was worried, Stan Edgar never worried about anything that quarterly profits couldn't solve. "What do we know?" she asked. Stan pulled up a holographic display from his tablet. Files materialized in the air between them, security footage, satellite thermal imaging, and a rapidly growing dossier marked Priority Alpha. Subject appeared in New York 3 days ago. No birth certificate, no social security number, no digital footprint whatsoever. He registers on our superhuman detection grid as a Class A threat. Power signature comparable to Homelander, but with a completely different energy profile. Madeline's stomach dropped. Comparable to Homelander? Thermally, yes. He breached our Staten Island distribution center, bypassed biometric security that's supposed to be unhackable, and extracted 24 vials of Compound V along with the complete synthesis database. Stan's voice never changed inflection. He could have been discussing lunch options. When confronted by Homelander, he demonstrated flight capability without any visible propulsion mechanism and evaded pursuit through Manhattan's airspace. Homelander lost him, Madeline said flatly. Homelander lost him, Stan confirmed, which, as you can imagine, has put our star hero in a volatile mood. As if summoned by speaking his name, the office doors burst open. Homelander strode in, cape swirling, face twisted in barely controlled rage. His eyes glowed faintly red, a warning sign that Madeline had learned to recognize as the precursor to catastrophic violence. "Where is he?" Homelander demanded, voice booming loud enough to rattle the office windows. 3 days, Madeline. 3 days, and your people haven't found this freak. What am I even paying you for?" "You're not paying us anything, Homelander," Stan said calmly. "Vought pays you. Let's maintain clarity about the business relationship." Homelander's head snapped toward Stan, eyes flaring brighter. For a moment, Madeline thought he might actually do it, might finally laser the one person in Vought who treated him like an asset instead of a god. But Stan simply met his gaze with the same measured indifference he'd show a quarterly earnings dip. The moment passed. Homelander's eyes dimmed and he turned back to Madeline. "This guy embarrassed me," he said, quieter now but somehow more dangerous. "Made me look like an idiot in front of my city. I want him found. I want him on his knees. And then I want him erased." "We're working on it," Madeline assured him, switching into her practiced soothing mode. "Our best analysts are tracking his movements. We've increased superhuman patrols across all 5 boroughs. We've even reached out to the 7's international contacts. Not good enough." Homelander leaned over her desk, and Madeline caught the scent of cologne and barely suppressed mania. "This asshole has our formula. Do you understand what that means? He could make more heroes, better heroes, heroes who don't need Vought." There it was, the real fear. Not that Sinister was dangerous, Homelander was too narcissistic to truly fear anything, but that this pale Victorian throwback might obsolete him, might create competition for America's love. "That's not going to happen," Stan said, and both Madeline and Homelander looked at him. "Because we're going to find him, neutralize him, and recover our property. But we're going to do it intelligently. No more solo pursuits. No more posturing for news cameras." "I don't posture," Homelander started. "You're doing it right now," Stan interrupted. "Standing in my office, cape dramatically positioned, voice projected for maximum intimidation. It's your brand, I understand. But this situation requires subtlety and precision, not spectacle." Madeline watched Homelander's jaw clench. Most people didn't survive talking to him like this. But Stan had leverage that even Homelander's laser eyes couldn't penetrate. He controlled the narrative, the marketing, the money, everything that made Homelander a god instead of just a flying psychopath in a cape. "Fine," Homelander said through gritted teeth. "Do it your way. But when you find him, I get to be there. I get to make him bleed." "Noted," Stan said. "Madeline will keep you updated." It wasn't a dismissal. Stan Edgar never dismissed Homelander that crudely, but the implication was clear. Homelander stared at both of them for a long moment, then turned and walked out, his cape flaring with practiced drama. The door closed. Madeline exhaled. "He's going to kill someone," she said. "Multiple someones, most likely," Stan agreed. "Which is why we need to resolve this situation quickly. What do we actually know about our intruder?" Madeline pulled up additional files. "He calls himself Mister Sinister." The name appeared on several dark web forums minutes after the Staten Island incident. Someone leaked security footage, probably one of the guards. He's become an instant mystery. Conspiracy theories are already spiraling. "The name suggests theatrical villainy," Stan observed. "Either he's genuinely insane or he's playing a role. Either option is dangerous. Our analysts believe he's from the incident in 2019. Stan's eyebrow rose a fraction of an inch, his version of shocked surprise. "The Philadelphia anomaly." Madeline nodded. "You remember? The dimensional breach that Vought's science division detected but couldn't explain. Energy signature off the charts, localized gravitational distortions, and then nothing. The incident was classified, buried under national security protocols." "You're suggesting this sinister individual came through a dimensional portal," Stan said slowly. "That he's not from our Earth at all. It would explain why he has no documentation, why his powers don't match our Compound V profiles, why he seems so alien in his methodology." Madeline pulled up thermal imaging of Sinister's cellular structure captured during his escape. "Look at this. His body temperature fluctuates in ways that shouldn't be possible. His cellular regeneration is constant, like his body is perpetually healing damage that isn't there. And his brain activity is wrong," Stan finished, leaning closer to the display. "The neural patterns don't match any superhuman we've documented. It's like his brain operates on different rules." "Different universe, different rules," Madeline said. "If he's from somewhere else, somewhere where superhumans occur naturally, then our compound vibe is fascinating to him," Stan concluded. "We've created artificially what his world produces organically. He's not here to fight us or join us. He's here to study us." The realization settled over the office like cold water. A dimensional visitor with godlike powers, treating their entire superhuman industry as a laboratory experiment. Treating Vought, Homelander, all of it, as specimens. "We need leverage," Madeline said. "Something he wants more than Compound V, something that would make him negotiate instead of just taking what he needs." Stan was quiet for a moment, his analytical mind processing probabilities. Then, the original template. "Sir, Compound V was developed in the 1930s by Frederick Vought using genetic material from Patient Zero, the first documented natural superhuman in recorded history. The company's founding secret. If Sinister is a geneticist interested in superhuman biology, that original template would be infinitely more valuable than our refined formula." Madeline felt ice in her veins. "You want to use Patient Zero's genetic legacy as bait. I want to resolve this situation before it becomes a public relations catastrophe," Stan corrected. "Before Homelander massacres civilians looking for Sinister. Before this geneticist decides he can improve on our formula and starts creating his own superhumans. Before we lose control of the narrative." "Patient Zero's remains are in the Berlin facility," Madeline said. "Maximum security. If Sinister goes after them, then we'll be waiting," Stan finished, "with appropriate countermeasures. The German government owes us several favors. We can position assets without alerting our mystery guest." Madeline accessed her secure communication network. already drafting deployment orders. I'll need authorization to mobilize international teams, and we should consider bringing in specialists, people who understand genetic warfare. Approved, but Madeline, Stan's voice carried a warning edge. This individual dismantled 4 superhumans without apparent effort. Whatever countermeasures we deploy, make sure they're overwhelming. I don't want casualties. I want results. Understood. Madeline's fingers flew across her tablet. I'll coordinate with our Berlin office and... Her tablet chimed. Priority alert. Her blood pressure spiked. What? Stan asked, reading her expression. It's from the boys, she said slowly. Billy Butcher's vigilante group. They're requesting a meeting. They say, she swallowed. They say they have information about our dimensional visitor, and they're offering a trade. Stan and Madeline locked eyes. The boys found him first, Stan said, and apparently they think they can negotiate with a being from another reality. Should we take the meeting? Stan considered. Yes, but quietly. No Homelander, no Seven, no publicity. If Butcher's group has made contact with Sinister, we need to know what was discussed and what was offered. Madeline scheduled the meeting, her mind racing through implications. Sinister had been in this world for 3 days. In that time, he'd breached Vought's security, stolen their most valuable asset, defeated their heroes, and apparently made contact with their most dangerous enemies. What was he planning? And why did she have the sinking feeling that everyone, Vought, the boys, even Homelander, were simply pieces moving across a board whose rules they didn't understand? On her screen, Sinister's frozen image stared back at her. That pale face, that red diamond, those eyes that seemed to look through cameras and into something deeper. He smiled in the photograph, like he knew they were watching, like he'd wanted them to. The Seven's briefing room occupied the 67th floor of Vought Tower, a space designed to make gods feel appropriately divine. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan like a throne room surveying its kingdom. The conference table was imported Italian marble. The chairs cost more than most Americans made in a year. Homelander hated it. Too corporate, too sterile, not enough worship. He stood at the window, hands clasped behind his back, watching the city that loved him. Below, tiny humans went about their tiny lives, blissfully unaware that their greatest hero was fantasizing about how quickly he could reduce this entire building to ash. "You're brooding," A-Train said from the conference table. "The brooding thing makes you look constipated, man." Homelander's eye twitched. He didn't turn around. "I'm thinking." "Scary," Queen Maeve muttered into her coffee. The rest of the Seven sat around the table in various states of attention. The Deep was scrolling through his phone, probably reading ocean conservation forums that no one else cared about. Black Noir stood motionless in the corner, creepy as always. Starlight, their newest member, looked uncomfortable in her ridiculous costume, still adjusting to the reality that heroes were primarily actors with powers. "We should be out there," Homelander said, voice tight, "hunting this asshole down block by block. Instead, we're having a meeting." "Stan's orders," Maeve reminded him. "Coordinated response, remember? No more solo cowboy bullshit." Homelander finally turned, laser eyes flickering. "Cowboy bullshit? I'm the only one who actually engaged this freak. The rest of you were busy with your photo ops and sponsorship deals while I was defending this city. And you lost him," A-Train pointed out. "Dude flew away and you couldn't catch him. That's embarrassing." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. A-Train realized his mistake immediately, but it was too late. Homelander crossed the space in 2 strides, grabbed the speedster by his throat, and lifted him out of his chair. "Say that again," Homelander whispered. "Please, give me a reason." "Homelander," Starlight started to stand. "Sit down," Homelander roared, not looking away from A-Train's reddening face. "All of you, sit the fuck down and remember who's in charge here." The door opened. Madeline Stillwell entered, flanked by two Vought security personnel carrying tablets and looking professionally terrified. She took in the scene, Homelander choking A-Train, the others frozen in various states of concern, and didn't even blink. "Homelander," she said calmly, "put him down. We have new intelligence." For a moment, the room balanced on the edge of violence. Then Homelander dropped A-Train, who collapsed gasping. The Supe leader turned to Madeline with a smile that would have charmed cameras and terrified anyone paying attention. "Of course. What have you got for us?" Madeline activated the central holographic display. An image materialized above the conference table, security footage from a bodega in Hell's Kitchen, timestamp from 6 hours ago. The footage showed a man in a long coat and wide-brimmed hat entering the store. When he removed the hat, revealing pale skin and that distinctive red diamond on his forehead, Starlight gasped. "That's him." "Mister Sinister," Madeline confirmed. "But watch what happens next." The footage continued. Sinister approached the counter, engaged in what appeared to be normal conversation with the clerk, then paid for bottled water and a newspaper using cash. A completely mundane transaction, except... "Freeze there," Madeline said. The image paused. "Enhance Sector 7. The display zoomed in on Sinister's reflection in the store's security mirror. While his physical body faced the counter, his reflection was looking directly at the security camera, looking at them through time and recording, with that same knowing smile. "He knew he was being recorded," Maeve said. "He wanted us to see him." "It gets better," Madeline said grimly. "Or worse, depending on your perspective. Continue footage." Sinister left the bodega. The timestamp jumped forward 60 seconds. A black van pulled up, the boys' distinctive unmarked vehicle. Butcher, Huey, and Mother's Milk emerged. They talked to the same clerk, showed him photos, and the clerk pointed in the direction Sinister had walked. "The boys are tracking him," Noir signed. Everyone had learned to read his sign language out of professional necessity. "The boys found him," Madeline corrected. "We've been monitoring their communications. They've had eyes on Sinister for 12 hours. They've documented his movements, identified 3 potential safe houses, and..." She paused, and Homelander noticed her jaw tighten. "They've made contact." The room erupted, multiple voices talking over each other. Homelander's laser eyes started glowing without his conscious input. "Silence!" His voice boomed off the walls. Everyone stopped. "Explain! Now!" Madeline pulled up another image. This one was grainier, obviously taken from extreme distance with a telephoto lens. It showed Sinister sitting on a bench in Central Park. Across from him, arms crossed, staring with barely contained fury, William Butcher. "This was taken 4 hours ago," Madeline said. "Our analysts enhanced the audio but only caught fragments. Butcher was negotiating something, offering something. And Sinister," she zoomed in on the geneticist's face, "was listening. Butcher's trying to weaponize him," Maeve realized. "He's trying to turn this alien psycho against us." "Oh, it's worse than that," Madeline said. She pulled up a transcript, audio waveforms, showing the few phrases their directional microphones had captured. Butcher offered him access to Vaught's genetic database. All of it. Every compound V subject we've ever created. Every variant. Every failure. In exchange. "In exchange for what?" Homelander demanded. "In exchange for Sinister creating something that can kill you." The silence was absolute. Homelander stood very still. His mind was moving too fast and too slow simultaneously. Butcher, that persistent, suicidal cockroach, had found a weapon. An actual weapon. Something from another universe with power comparable to his own. and Butcher had pointed it at his throat. "We don't know if Sinister agreed," Madeline added quickly. "The meeting ended inconclusively, but the fact that he took the meeting at all suggests he's considering options." "So we kill him," Homelander said flatly. "Right now. We mobilize the 7, every Vought asset we have, and we erase this problem before..." "Before what?" Queen Maeve interrupted. "Before he makes more of himself? Before he releases whatever genetic horrors he's been cooking up? Homelander, we don't even know what he's capable of. He embarrassed you in a straight fight." "He did not." "He did," Maeve said firmly. "And if we go after him with everything we have and fail, we look weak. If we go after him and he destroys half of Manhattan defending himself, we are responsible. We need to be smart about this." Homelander wanted to laser her, wanted to burn the condescension right out of her throat. But she was right, which made it worse. "What does Stan suggest?" he asked through gritted teeth. "Containment," Madeline said. "We have assets moving into position around his known safe houses. If he resurfaces, we lock down the area and negotiate from a position of strength. No public confrontations, no collateral damage. We bring him in quietly and dissect him in one of our black sites," Homelander finished. "Learn what makes him tick. Maybe even improve our own Compound 5 with whatever makes him special." "That's one option," Madeline said carefully. The Deep finally spoke up. "What if he's telling the truth?" Everyone looked at him. He shrank slightly under the attention but continued. "I mean, what if he really is from another dimension? What if there are more like him? What if attacking him brings down his whole universe on ours?" "Jesus Christ," A-Train groaned. "That's the stupidest..." "It's not stupid," Starlight said quietly. Everyone turned to her. She looked uncomfortable but determined. "We don't know what we're dealing with. We don't know the rules. Maybe we should try talking before we start a war with something we don't understand." Homelander stared at her. Sweet, naive Starlight, still believing that words solved problems, that justice meant something more than publicity and ratings. "Talking," he said slowly, "is what Butcher's doing. And look where that got us. A dimensional terrorist considering making weapons to kill me. No. We find him, we neutralize him, and we study what's left." "Homelander," Starlight started. "Meeting over." Homelander turned to Madeline. "Tell Stan I want every available asset on this. I want surveillance on Butcher's group 24/7. I want containment teams ready to deploy in 30 seconds. And when we locate Sinister, I want to be the first one there. Are we clear?" Madeline nodded. "Crystal. Good." Homelander straightened his cape, forced his media smile, and headed for the door. "Oh, and Madeline, make sure the PR department is ready to spin whatever happens next, because when I find this Victorian freak, it's going to be messy." He left. The room exhaled collectively. "He's going to get people killed," Starlight said. "He gets people killed every Tuesday," Maeve replied, finishing her coffee. "The difference is this time it might include us." Across the city, in the basement of a butcher shop that hadn't sold meat in 3 years, Billy Butcher stared at the phone number he'd been given. "You're actually considering this," Mother's Milk said from the doorway. "Tell me you're not actually considering this." Butcher lit a cigarette, took a long drag. "Course I'm considering it. Question is whether I'm insane enough to go through with it." "The answer's yes," Frenchie called from the computer station. "You are always insane enough." Huey sat across from Butcher, looking younger than his years and twice as worried. "Billy, this guy isn't like the Supes we've dealt with. He's different, wrong. Like he's playing a game we don't even know the rules to." "Exactly," Butcher said, "which makes him perfect for what we need." "We need a weapon against Homelander," MM said. "Not an extinction-level event. This Sinister guy, he's got plans. His own agenda. You think you can control that? Butcher smiled, the smile that meant he'd already made his decision and was just letting everyone else catch up to the inevitable. I don't need to control him, I just need to point him at the right target and get out of the way. He pulled out his phone, started dialing the number Sinister had given him. And if he's what he says he is, if he really can do what he promised, then Homelander's days are fucking numbered. And if he can't, Huey asked, if he's lying or if this goes wrong. Butcher's finger hovered over the call button. For just a moment, doubt flickered across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by the iron certainty that had kept him alive and hunting for years. Then we're no worse off than we are now, he said. And at least we'll have tried something that scared the cunts at Vought. He pressed the button. The phone rang once, twice. On the third ring, it connected. Mr. Butcher, Sinister's cultured voice oozed through the speaker. I was hoping you'd call. I've reviewed your proposition, and I must say, it has potential. Shall we discuss the specifics of our arrangement? Butcher met MM's eyes across the room, saw the disapproval, the fear, the resignation. Yeah, Butcher said into the phone. Let's talk about killing a god. The meeting place Sinister had chosen spoke volumes about his understanding of this world's power dynamics. Not a shadowy warehouse or abandoned building. Those were theatrical cliches that accomplished nothing. Instead, he'd selected a penthouse suite in the Flatiron district, rented under a false identity with cryptocurrency that couldn't be traced, positioned to give perfect sightlines of approaching threats while offering multiple escape routes. Butcher arrived alone, as instructed. He'd argued with his team for an hour before finally accepted that backup would only complicate things. If Sinister wanted Butcher dead, no amount of support would stop him. The elevator opened directly into the suite. Sinister stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, silhouetted against the Manhattan skyline, still wearing that ridiculous Victorian coat. He didn't turn when Butcher entered. Mr. Butcher, Sinister said, you're 3 minutes early, eager or simply professional? Eager to see. If you're full of shit, Butcher replied, closing the distance but maintaining tactical spacing. You said you could create something that kills Homelander. I want details. Direct. I appreciate that. Sinister finally turned, and Butcher got his first clear look at those eyes, ancient, predatory, intelligent in ways that made his skin crawl. But before we discuss methodology, let's establish what you're actually offering. Butcher pulled out a tablet, set it on the glass coffee table. Complete access to Vaught's genetic database, every soup they've created since the 1950s, DNA profiles, compound V variants, success rates, failure documentation, everything. Sinister's eyes gleamed. And how did you acquire this access? Had it for 2 years, Butcher said. Hacked it, bought insiders, blackmailed executives, built a comprehensive picture of every corporate-made superhuman in North America, been saving it for the right moment. And I'm that moment. Sinister picked up the tablet, fingers dancing across the screen. Impressive. 30,000 documented subjects, 783 variants of compound V, mortality rates that would horrify this world's ethics boards if they knew. Yes, this will do nicely. So you'll do it. You'll make something that can kill him. Sinister set down the tablet and met Butcher's eyes. I can make something that will challenge him. Something powerful enough to fight Homelander on relatively equal terms. But understand, Mr. Butcher, true creation takes time. Genetic engineering isn't instantaneous, regardless of my capabilities. The real question is, what are you willing to sacrifice for this weapon? Butcher's jaw tightened. What kind of sacrifice? The biological kind. Sinister began pacing, hands clasped behind his back. To create a being capable of matching Homelander's strength, I need genetic material from someone who hates him enough to fuel that creation, someone whose rage and determination can be encoded into the very DNA of this weapon. In short, I need your blood, Mr. Butcher, your tissue, your genetic blueprint as the foundation. The room went very quiet. You want to make a clone of me, Butcher said slowly. Not a clone, a refinement, an optimization. Sinister's smile was clinical. I'll take your genetic structure and enhance it with elements from Compound V, stabilized through my own understanding of superhuman biology. The result will be something new, possessing superhuman abilities while retaining your psychological characteristics, your hatred, your tactical mind, your absolute refusal to surrender. You're talking about making a monster with my face. I'm talking about making a weapon with your purpose, Sinister corrected. One that shares your singular drive to destroy Homelander. Think of it as a better version of yourself. One that can actually accomplish what you've been attempting for years. Butcher walked to the window, staring out at the city. Somewhere out there, Homelander was flying around, basking in adoration, completely untouchable. The bastard who destroyed Butcher's life, who'd killed Rebecca, who represented everything wrong with this corporate superhero hellscape. And here was someone offering him revenge, real revenge. All it would cost was... what? His DNA? A piece of himself transformed into something powerful enough to hurt the unhurtable. What's to stop this thing from turning on me? Butcher asked. What's to stop it from being just another soup asshole? Nothing, Sinister admitted with refreshing honesty. Except that its psychological foundation will be you. Your memories translated into behavioral imperatives. Your hatred encoded into its purpose. I can't guarantee perfect control, Mr. Butcher, but I can guarantee that whatever I create will share your obsession with destroying Homelander. Butcher turned back. And what do you get out of this, besides the database? Knowledge, Sinister said, simply. Your world has stumbled onto something fascinating with Compound V, artificial superhuman creation through genetic manipulation. But the formula is crude, unstable, limited by corporate profit motives rather than true scientific understanding. I intend to perfect it, and in the process perhaps discover whether this universe's approach to enhanced biology can be synthesized with my own universe's methodologies. You're using us as a fucking experiment. We're using each other, Sinister corrected. You get your weapon, I get my data. Vought loses their monopoly on superhuman creation. Everyone benefits. Except, of course, Homelander. Butcher considered. Would tell him this was insane. Huey would beg him not to do it. Frenchie would probably be fascinated. But none of them had to make this choice. None of them carried the weight of what Homelander had done. How long? Butcher asked. 3 weeks for basic creation, another 2 for maturation and psychological conditioning. 5 weeks total before your weapon is operational. That's too long. Vaught's already mobilizing. They'll find you before then. Sinister's smile widened. Then I suppose we'll need to ensure they remain distracted, which brings me to my next proposal. While I work on your anti-Homelander project, I'll need protection, resources, a location where Vaught's surveillance can't reach. Can your organization provide this? We can keep you off the grid, Butcher confirmed. Safe houses, scrambled communications, counter-surveillance. But if Vought comes at us with their full force, they won't, Sinister interrupted, because I'm going to give them something more immediate to worry about. Something that will occupy their attention while we work. Tell me, Mr. Butcher, how would you like to see Homelander humiliated on live television? Butcher's grin was feral. I'm listening. Sinister pulled out a vial of blue liquid, Compound V. I've been analyzing this formula. It's unstable by design, meant to create powerful but ultimately controllable assets. The subjects require psychological reinforcement to maintain their abilities. Remove that reinforcement, introduce the right psychological stressors, and the powers begin to degrade. Supes become unreliable, dangerous to themselves and others. You can make them lose control, Butcher realized. I can make them doubt, Sinister said, which amounts to the same thing. Imagine the Seven live at one of their promotional events, suddenly experiencing simultaneous power failures. Homelander's lasers misfiring, Queen Maeve's strength fluctuating, A-Train's speed becoming unpredictable. All broadcast to millions of viewers who've been told these gods are infallible. Butcher's mind raced with possibilities. You can do this. I can weaponize their own biology against them. Not permanently. I'm not trying to cure them. Just enough to create public doubt, corporate panic. While Vought scrambles to manage their image crisis, you and I complete our project unmolested. You're a right proper bastard, Butcher said with genuine admiration. Vicious, calculating, no moral boundaries whatsoever. I fucking love it. Is that a yes to our arrangement? Butcher extended his hand. Make me something that can kill Homelander, and you can have all the genetic data you can stomach. Plus, I'll throw in protection and resources. Deal? Sinister took his hand. His skin was cold, almost reptilian. Deal, Mr. Butcher. Though I should warn you, once this begins, there's no stopping it. You're unleashing something that will fundamentally alter the power structure of your world. Are you prepared for those consequences? I've been preparing my whole life, Butcher said. Now let's go ruin Homelander's fucking day. The laboratory Sinister established made his previous facilities look primitive. Butcher's team had secured an abandoned Vought pharmaceutical research site in New Jersey, one of dozens of black projects the corporation had quietly shuttered when profit margins didn't justify continued investment. The irony of using Vaught's own abandoned infrastructure to build weapons against them wasn't lost on anyone. Sinister had spent 48 hours transforming the dusty facility into something that would make this world's geneticists weep with envy. Equipment salvaged from medical suppliers, modified with technology he'd either brought from his universe or synthesized from first principles. Incubation chambers lined one wall, their biotanks filled with nutrient solution that glowed faintly blue. Computer systems hummed with processing power as they ran genetic simulations that would take this world's supercomputers months to complete. In the center of it all, suspended in the primary incubation chamber, floated the beginning of Butcher's weapon. Jesus Christ, Huey whispered, staring at the thing. Is that the early embryonic stage? Sinister confirmed, not looking up from his monitoring station. Accelerated growth through a combination of modified Compound V and growth hormones, synthesized from my own genetic template. In 3 weeks, this cellular mass will be a fully mature human with capabilities exceeding any Supe Vought has produced. The shape in the tank was barely recognizable as humanoid, yet more suggestion than reality, flesh forming according to genetic instructions that Sinister was writing in real time. But there was something disturbing about watching it pulse and grow, like witnessing evolution on fast forward. Stood with arms crossed, jaw tight. This is wrong. All of it. We're playing God with Butcher's DNA, creating life just to weaponize it. We're creating a solution, Butcher corrected from where he sat, arm connected to an IV line as Sinister extracted genetic material. And before you start with the morality lecture, remember what we're up against. Homelanders killed hundreds. Vaught's killed thousands through botched Compound 5 experiments. If this abomination is what it takes to stop them, then I'll sleep fine at night. Will you? Frenchie asked from his workstation, where he was helping Sinister calibrate the incubation parameters. Sleep fine, I mean. When you look at this thing and see your own face staring back. Won't be my face, Butcher said. Sinister's enhancing it, right? Making it better, stronger, all that bollocks. Correct, Sinister confirmed, checking the genetic sequencer readout. The facial structure will be similar. Psychological anchoring requires recognizable features, but optimized. Enhanced bone density for durability. Muscle fiber restructured for maximum power output. Neurological pathways designed for tactical processing and aggression management. Think of it as Butcher 2.0. Great, Huey muttered, because one Butcher wasn't terrifying enough. Sinister removed the IV, bandaging Butcher's arm with clinical efficiency. That's sufficient genetic material for the primary development phase. Now comes the more complex element, psychological imprinting. He gestured to a chair surrounded by scanning equipment that looked like it belonged in a torture chamber. Neural interface cables, psychic amplification nodes, memory extraction devices. You're going to read my mind, Butcher said flatly. I'm going to copy specific memory engrams and emotional patterns, Sinister corrected. Your hatred of Homelander, your tactical training, your survival instincts. These will be encoded into the creation's neural structure during formation. When it awakens, it will share your fundamental drive, your need to destroy him. How does that even work? Huey asked. You can't just copy memories like files on a computer. Can't I? Sinister's smile was patronizing. I've been manipulating genetic memory and psychological imprinting for over a century. The human brain is simply organic hardware running biochemical software. With the right tools and understanding, that software can be read, copied, and transferred. Your world's primitive understanding of neurology hasn't reached this point, but mine has. Butcher moved to the chair, sat down. Get on with it then. Sooner this bastard's operational, sooner Homelander's dead. Sinister began attaching neural interfaces to Butcher's skull. This will be uncomfortable. I'm accessing deep memory structures, traumatic experiences, formative moments, the psychological foundation of your obsession. You'll relive them as I extract the data. Been living with them every day anyway, Butcher said grimly. Do your worst. Sinister activated the equipment. Butcher's body went rigid as psychic probes invaded his consciousness, pulling memories like teeth. The team watched the monitors as images flickered across screens. Rebecca's face, Homelander's smile, blood and rage, and years of hunting, with nothing to show for it except more bodies and more reasons to keep hunting. Fascinating, Sinister murmured, manipulating the data streams. Such concentrated hatred, such absolute refusal to accept defeat. Your psychological profile is perfect for this application, Mr. Butcher. This creation will be remarkably single-minded. Minutes passed. Butcher's face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead, but he didn't make a sound. Finally, Sinister deactivated the equipment. Extraction complete. The memory engrams are being processed and prepared for neural encoding. He helped Butcher out of the chair. You should rest. The psychological excavation process is draining. Butcher waved him off. I'm fine. What's next? Next, I fulfill my end of the bargain regarding Vought's distraction. Sinister moved to another workstation, pulling up data from the genetic database Butcher had provided. I've analyzed the Seven's individual compound V profiles. Each member has specific genetic markers that their powers depend on, biological switches that can be influenced. He brought up a molecular diagram that meant nothing to anyone except Frenchie, who leaned in with interest. You're designing a pathogen, Frenchie realized, something that targets Supe genetics specifically. A temporary genetic disruptor, Sinister confirmed. airborne, fast-acting, and completely harmless to baseline humans. But for anyone with Compound V in their system, it will cause temporary power instability. Fluctuations, misfires, unpredictable manifestations. The effect lasts approximately 4 hours before the body's natural regeneration purges it. 4 hours of the 7 losing control of their powers, said slowly. During what, exactly? Sinister pulled up a schedule on his screen, Vaught's public events calendar. In 3 days, the 7 are hosting a charity gala at the Javits Center. 2,000 attendees, live television coverage, Homelander scheduled to give a speech about heroism and integrity. I'm going to release the pathogen during his speech. The entire world will watch America's greatest heroes fall apart. People could die, Huey said. If Homelander's lasers start firing randomly, then Vought will be busy managing casualties instead of hunting us, Butcher interrupted. And the public will finally see what we've known all along. These Supes are ticking time bombs in capes. I say we do it. Of course you do, said bitterly. Because collateral damage doesn't matter when you're getting revenge. It matters, Butcher said quietly. But Homelander's killed more people in a year than my pathogen will in 4 hours. We stop him now, permanently, and we save thousands. That's the calculation, That's always been the calculation. Sinister watched this exchange with detached interest, like a scientist observing rats debating laboratory ethics. Your moral concerns are noted, but irrelevant. The pathogen is already synthesized. The delivery system is prepared. Whether you approve or not, the demonstration will occur. I suggest you use those 3 days to prepare your safe houses and contingency plans. Once Vought realizes they're under biological attack, they'll mobilize everything against us. Good, Butcher said, standing despite his obvious exhaustion. Let them come. By the time they figure out where we are, your weapon will be ready. And then we'll show them what real power looks like. In the incubation tank, the embryonic shape pulsed and grew, fed by stolen genetics and engineered hatred. It had no consciousness yet, no awareness of its purpose. But in its forming DNA, encoded alongside Compound V and Sinister's enhancements, lived one absolute imperative: destroy Homelander. Whatever the cost. The Javits Center glittered like a corporate cathedral. 2,000 of New York's elite packed the venue, celebrities, politicians, Vought executives, and the kind of wealthy philanthropists who believed charity galas absolved their tax evasion. Crystal chandeliers reflected off evening gowns and tailored suits. A string quartet played something classical and expensive sounding. And at the center of it all, bathed in spotlights and adoration, stood the 7. Homelander gave his speech from a podium emblazoned with Vaught's logo, cape draped perfectly, smile calculated to inspire rather than terrify. The teleprompter fed him words about responsibility and heroism, and he delivered them with the practiced sincerity of someone who'd been media trained since childhood. In these uncertain times, Homelander said, the world needs heroes more than ever. Heroes who stand for truth, justice, and the American... His voice caught. For just a fraction of a second, something flickered across his face. Confusion. Then it was gone, replaced by that trademark smile. In the rafters, invisible to everyone below, Sinister released the pathogen. The aerosol dispersed silently, carried by the ventilation system throughout the venue. Colorless, odorless, completely undetectable to normal senses. It settled over the crowd like invisible snow, absorbed through lungs and skin, spreading through bloodstreams and finding its targets with molecular precision. Baseline humans breathed it in and felt nothing. But 7 people in the room, 7 bodies infused with Compound V, began experiencing something very different. Homelander continued his speech, but his laser eyes flickered, just for a moment. The red glow intensified, dimmed, intensified again like a faulty light bulb. He blinked hard, trying to suppress it, but the crowd had noticed. Murmurs rippled through the audience. As I was saying, Homelander pushed on, gripping the podium harder. Heroes who stand for... A-Train suddenly stumbled. His super speed activated involuntarily, causing him to vibrate in place like a malfunctioning engine. He crashed into a champagne table, glasses exploding, wealthy patrons shrieking and diving away. A-Train, Queen Maeve called out, moving toward him. But when she took a step, her superhuman strength misfired. Her foot went through the stage floor like it was made of paper. She tried to pull back, overcompensated, and fell backward into the horrified crowd. The deep gills suddenly opened and closed spasmodically. He gasped for air or water, his biology confused about which it needed. Starlight's eyes lit up with uncontrolled light energy, shooting beams across the ceiling that shattered chandeliers and sent crystal raining down on screaming socialites. Black Noir collapsed to his knees, superhuman senses overwhelmed by the pathogen's effect. Every sound became deafening. Every light became blinding. He clutched his head, body convulsing, and Homelander's laser eyes fired. Not directed, not controlled. Just pure energy exploding from his face as his biology went haywire. The beams carved across the venue's wall, melting metal and concrete, barely missing a group of executives who dove behind tables. He clamped his eyes shut, teeth gritted, fighting for control he didn't have. "What the fuck is happening?" he screamed, and the microphone amplified it to the entire venue. Panic erupted. 2,000 people stampeded for the exits, climbing over each other, crushing the unlucky under-designer shoes. Security tried to maintain order, but gave up quickly. You didn't argue with a terrified mob. Media cameras caught everything. Live feeds broadcast the Seven's meltdown to millions of viewers. Homelander struggling to control his lasers, destroying property with every misfired blast. Queen Maeve accidentally throwing bystanders like ragdolls when she tried to help them. A train vibrating so fast he phased through a wall and disappeared. In the chaos, medical teams rushed the stage. Vought's PR personnel screamed into radios, demanding explanations. Madeline Stillwell watched from the VIP section, her perfect composure finally cracking as she realized this wasn't an accident or isolated incident. This was an attack. From his position 2 blocks away, watching through hacked security feeds, Butcher laughed so hard he nearly choked. "Beautiful," he gasped, wiping tears from his eyes. "Absolutely fucking beautiful. Look at them. Look at the mighty Seven, falling apart like cheap toys." Huey looked sick. "Billy, people are getting hurt down there." "People get hurt every day thanks to these cunts," Butcher replied, not taking his eyes off the screens. "Difference is, now the world's watching. Now they see what we've been saying all along." checked his own tablet, monitoring emergency frequencies. Vaught's mobilizing everything. Medical teams, hazmat units, private security. They're locking down the venue and sweeping for biological threats. "They won't find anything," Frenchie said confidently. "Sinister's pathogen is designed to degrade within minutes of deployment. By the time their hazmat teams arrive, the molecular structure will have broken down to untraceable components." On screen, Homelander finally regained some control over his laser eyes. He stood in the ruined venue, surrounded by destruction he'd caused, and his face was the real victory. Not angry, not composed, terrified. "This is going viral already," Huey reported, scrolling through social media. Thousands of videos, millions of views. The Seven failure is trending worldwide. Butcher's phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. Phase 1 complete. Vought will be occupied with damage control for days. I suggest you relocate your operations immediately. They'll trace this eventually. He's right, said reluctantly. We need to move, pack up everything, scatter the team, reassemble at Safe House 7. What about Sinister's lab? Huey asked. Sinister can take care of himself, Butcher replied, already moving toward the exit. Our job is staying alive long enough for his weapon to finish cooking. Then, his phone rang. Madeline Stillwell's number. Butcher grinned and answered. Madeline, love. Watching the gala. Hell of a show. Her voice was ice. Butcher, I know you're involved in this. I don't know how, but I know. And when we find proof... You'll what? Send Homelander after me? The same Homelander who just destroyed half the Javits Center because he couldn't control his own face? Yeah, I'm terrified. Butcher's grin widened. How's it feel, Madeline? Watching your perfect heroes fall apart on live TV? Watching your corporate empire crack? This isn't over. You're right about that. This is just beginning. You want to know what happened tonight? Someone showed the world what you've been hiding? Those Supes are ticking time bombs. Unstable, dangerous, and no amount of PR spin is going to make people forget what they just saw. Who are you working with? Madeline demanded. This level of genetic targeting, the precision, you don't have access to that kind of science. Maybe I got lucky, or maybe, Butcher paused for dramatic effect. Maybe someone else wants to see Vought burn as much as I do, someone with the skills to make it happen. Sleep tight, Madeline. This is going to get worse before it gets better. He hung up. The team was already packing equipment, moving with practiced efficiency. Billy, said quietly, we just declared war on the most powerful corporation on Earth. Using a weapon we don't fully understand, created by a man from another dimension who might be more dangerous than anyone at Vought. You realize how insane this is? Been insane for years, Butcher grabbed his go bag. Difference is, now I've got the firepower to match my ambition. 2 more weeks, and Sinister's weapon is ready. Then we take the fight directly to Homelander. And if the weapon doesn't work? If Sinister's lying, or if it fails? Butcher looked at his oldest friend. Then at least we went down swinging. Better than hiding forever, waiting for Homelander to find us and end it on his terms. This way we control the fight. We choose the battlefield. And we make that bastard bleed. Nodded slowly. He didn't agree, would probably never agree, but he understood. After years of hunting Supes, of watching friends die and victories slip away, Butcher had finally found a path that might actually work, even if that path led straight through hell. They fled into the New York night, leaving behind a city full of terrified socialites and shaken faith in superhero perfection. Behind them, the 7 recovered slowly, their powers stabilizing as the pathogen degraded. But the damage was done. The world had seen its gods falter, and once that doubt took root, no amount of PR could fully erase it. In his New Jersey laboratory, surrounded by humming equipment and the soft glow of incubation tanks, Mister Sinister smiled. He'd accomplished multiple objectives, destabilized Vaught's public image, tested his genetic disruptor in field conditions, and bought precious time for his primary project. The creation in the tank had grown significantly, recognizably human now, muscular, powerful. Its face bore Butcher's features, but enhanced, sharper, stronger, designed for maximum physical capability. In another 2 weeks, it would be complete. And then the boys would have exactly what they'd paid for, something that could stand against Homelander and not simply die. Whether Butcher survived what came after was irrelevant to Sinister's research. Vought Tower's executive floor felt like a bunker under siege. Security had tripled. Superhuman assets patrolled every corridor. Stan Edgar had instituted a complete communication lockdown, nothing in or out without his personal authorization. The corporation that sold superhero perfection was showing cracks, and every executive knew the entire empire could collapse if those cracks widened. Stan sat in his office, reviewing damage reports with the emotional investment of someone reading a grocery list. Madeline Stillwell stood across from him, exhausted but composed. Between them, holographic displays showed the catastrophic fallout from the Javits Center incident. Stock price down 18%, Stan recited. 3 class action lawsuits filed within 4 hours. Senator Newman calling for congressional hearings on Compound V safety. CNN running a 24-hour special titled, "Can We Trust the Seven?" And social media, he gestured dismissively at cascading negative metrics, is a complete loss. "We can spin this," Madeline insisted. "Terrorist attack using unknown biological weapons. The Seven showed remarkable restraint despite being under assault. They're victims, not threats." "That only works if we can identify the attacker," Stan replied. "Which we can't. Our hazmat teams found nothing. The pathogen degraded before they even arrived. We have no suspects, no evidence, and no explanation for how someone developed a genetic weapon specifically targeting Compound V subjects." "It was Butcher," Madeline said with absolute certainty. "He called me minutes after the incident. Taunting. He knows something. Butcher is a talented nuisance, not a geneticist capable of this level of sophistication." Stan pulled up a 3-dimensional model of the pathogen's suspected molecular structure based on its observed effects. This required expert knowledge of Compound V's genetic mechanics, access to advanced synthesis equipment, and testing capability that even our own labs would struggle to replicate. Butcher didn't do this alone. Then who's helping him? Stan's pause was meaningful. "I believe we both know the answer to that question." Madeline's stomach dropped. "Sinister. Our dimensional visitor has been remarkably quiet since his initial theft. No confirmed sightings, no additional security breaches, no attempts to sell the stolen Compound V on black markets. I assumed he was lying low, analyzing what he'd stolen. But if he's formed an alliance with Butcher's group, then they have a geneticist capable of weaponizing our own biology against us," Madeline finished. "Jesus Christ. What's the play here?" Before Stan could answer, the office doors burst open. Homelander entered without knocking, cape singed, costume torn, face twisted in barely controlled rage. Queen Maeve followed, looking exhausted and bruised in ways that shouldn't be possible given her durability. "We need to talk," Homelander's voice boomed off the windows. "Then talk quietly," Stan said calmly. "Shouting won't improve our situation." "Our situation?" Homelander stalked toward the desk. "Our situation is that I just lost control of my powers on live fucking television. That I watched myself destroy property and terrify civilians because my body stopped working. That every news outlet is questioning whether the Seven are safe to have around. This is your fault." "No," Stan said evenly. "This is the fault of whoever deployed that biological weapon, and screaming at me won't help us find them." "I know who did this." Homelander slammed his fist on the desk hard enough to crack the imported wood. "That Victorian freak you let slip through our fingers, the one you said we'd contain and negotiate with. Where is he, Stan? Where?" "We're working on that." "Working on it isn't good enough." Homelander's eyes glowed red. For a moment, Madeline genuinely believed he might laser Stan right there. "I want a location. I want a target. And I want permission to erase this problem permanently." "Killing Sinister won't solve anything," Maeve interjected quietly. "If he's working with the boys, they probably have contingencies. Plans we don't know about. We need to think strategically." "Strategically?" Homelander rounded on her. "You mean sit around while some interdimensional terrorist makes us look weak? While he works on whatever genetic horror show he's planning next?" We don't even know what he's planning, Maeve argued. For all we know, tonight was just a distraction, something to keep us focused on damage control while he works on... She stopped. Everyone stopped. While he works on what? Madeline asked slowly. The realization settled over the room like toxic gas. Oh God, Madeline whispered. He's making something, using the stolen compound V, combined with whatever genetic knowledge he has from his universe. He's creating a new superhuman. One specifically designed to counter us, Maeve added, face pale. That's why he attacked tonight. Buy time while whatever he's growing reaches maturity. Stan pulled up his tablet, fingers dancing across the screen as he accessed Vought's biological monitoring network. If he's growing a superhuman, he'll need specialized equipment, incubation chambers, genetic sequencers, bio-support systems, all of which produce distinct energy signatures. I'm scanning for... He stopped. The tablet displayed a map of the New York metropolitan area with dozens of highlighted locations. That's not possible, he said quietly. What? Homelander demanded. There are 47 facilities within a 100-mile radius showing energy signatures consistent with active incubation equipment. 47 locations where Sinister could potentially be working. Then we hit all of them, Homelander said immediately. The 7, plus every Vought strike team we have, simultaneous raids. One of them has to be the right location. That would require mobilizing hundreds of assets, Madeline said. The media attention alone would be catastrophic. We can't explain why we're raiding 47 random locations without admitting we're hunting someone who stole Compound V and is using it for unknown purposes. So we do it quietly, Homelander insisted. Black Ops, no cameras. We go in, neutralize any threats, and if we find Sinister or his creation, we eliminate them before they become a bigger problem. Stan considered. For once, Homelander's violent instincts aligned with practical necessity. Authorized, Stan said, but with conditions. No civilian casualties, no property destruction that can't be explained as industrial accidents. And if you encounter Sinister himself, I want him taken alive if possible. He knows things about genetics that could be invaluable to our research division. Fuck your research, Homelander spat. I find him. I'm ending him. Then you'll answer to the board, Stan replied coolly. Remember your position here, Homelander. You're not judge and executioner. You're a product. Act within the parameters of your role. The temperature in the room plummeted. Homelander's fists clenched. His jaw worked. Madeline could see the calculation happening behind his eyes, weighing the satisfaction of lasering Stan against the consequences of killing the man who controlled his entire existence. The moment passed. Homelander straightened, forced his trademark smile. Of course, he said with venomous sweetness, I'm a team player. Whatever the company needs. He turned and left, cape swirling. The doors slammed behind him with enough force to crack the frame. Maeve lingered. He's going to kill someone. You know that, right? The moment he finds Sinister or the boys or whoever's involved, he's going to lose control. Probably, Stan agreed, which is why you'll be accompanying him. Keep him focused, minimize collateral damage, and if things go too far... I can't stop Homelander, Maeve interrupted. Nobody can. Then document it, Stan said. Record everything. If this situation devolves into a public massacre, I'll need evidence that Vought attempted proper oversight. Your testimony could be useful. Maeve stared at him, disgust evident on her face. You're already planning how to spin his murder spree. We haven't even found these people yet, and you're calculating the PR strategy for when Homelander kills them. That's my job, Stan said without remorse. Managing outcomes, controlling narratives, ensuring Vought survives regardless of circumstances. If you find that distasteful, I suggest you reconsider your career choice. Maeve left without another word. Alone with Stan, Madeline finally voiced the question that had been gnawing at her. What if we can't stop them? What if Sinister finishes whatever he's making, and it's actually capable of killing Homelander? Stan was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the Manhattan skyline. His empire, built on manufactured gods and careful lies, suddenly feeling very fragile. Then we adapt, he said finally. We've built our business model on controlling the superhuman narrative. If Homelander becomes obsolete, or worse, a liability, we'll replace him. We've done it before with lesser assets. The brand survives, even if individual products don't. You'd actually let Homelander die? I'd let the world burn if it maintained Vought's market position, Stan replied. Our only imperative is survival. Everything else, including Homelander, is negotiable. He turned back to his reports, already planning 3 moves ahead. Somewhere out there, Mister Sinister was creating something designed to challenge Vought's greatest asset. And somewhere in the same city, the boys were preparing for a war they couldn't possibly understand the scope of. But Stan Edgar had built an empire by staying one step ahead of chaos. And he wasn't about to let some Victorian geneticist and a vengeful vigilante destroy it. The raids began at midnight. 47 locations, 47 coordinated strikes. Vought deployed every available asset. The 7 split across priority targets, secondary hero teams covering the rest, Black Ops units filling the gaps. The largest superhuman mobilization in corporate history, all to find one man and whatever he was creating. They found 32 abandoned facilities, 8 active laboratories belonging to legitimate pharmaceutical companies, whose lawyers would be filing lawsuits by morning. 4 locations that turned out to be Vought's own mothballed research sites, which created awkward internal memos. And 3 that fought back. The New Jersey facility was Homelander's target. He'd insisted on it. Something about the energy signature matching his internal sense of wrongness. Queen Maeve accompanied him, along with a full tactical team in armored vehicles. They breached at 12:47 a.m. The building looked abandoned from outside, shattered windows, rusted infrastructure, the corpse of corporate ambition left to rot. But Homelander's X-ray vision revealed the truth. Active equipment 3 floors down, power conduits feeding something massive, and heat signatures that registered as superhuman. He's here, Homelander said, laser eyes already glowing. I can feel it. Then we do this smart, Maeve insisted. Controlled entry, secure the facility, extract Sinister alive if possible. Stan's orders. Fuck Stan's orders. Homelander's eyes flared brighter. I'm ending this. He didn't wait for the tactical team, didn't coordinate with Maeve. Just launched himself at the building, shattering through the exterior wall like a missile through paper. Concrete and rebar exploded inward, alarms screamed, and somewhere deep in the facility, Mister Sinister smiled. Homelander descended through the floors, ripping through each level with controlled destruction. Second floor, empty. First floor, empty. Basement level. He stopped. The laboratory spread before him like something from a science fiction nightmare. Incubation tanks lined the walls, most empty but one, the central tank, still occupied. Inside, suspended in glowing blue nutrient solution, floated a figure that made Homelander's blood run cold. It looked like William Butcher, but wrong. Enhanced. The musculature was superhuman, dense and powerful in ways normal humans couldn't achieve. The face held Butcher's features but refined, optimized, like someone had taken the original and rebuilt it for maximum efficiency. And even unconscious, even suspended in chemical sleep, the thing radiated menace. Beautiful, isn't it? Sinister's voice echoed through the laboratory. Homelander spun. The Victorian geneticist stood on an elevated platform, surrounded by monitoring equipment, looking completely unafraid despite facing the world's most powerful superhuman. "What the fuck is that?" Homelander demanded, gesturing at the tank. "Your replacement," Sinister said pleasantly. "Or perhaps your executioner. The terminology depends on how the next few minutes unfold. I call it the Anti-Homelander Protocol, Butcher's genetic foundation enhanced with stabilized compound phi, reinforced with biological augmentations from my own research. Designed specifically to match your capabilities while lacking your psychological instabilities. You made a clone of Butcher." Homelander laughed, high, strained. "That's your plan? Some roided-up vigilante? I'll snap it in half." "Will you?" Sinister pulled up a holographic display showing the creation's specifications. It possesses strength equivalent to yours, durability approaching your levels, accelerated healing that surpasses your regeneration, and most importantly, complete psychological immunity to your intimidation tactics. It doesn't fear you, Homelander. It doesn't worship you. It exists for one purpose: your destruction. Homelander's laser eyes blazed. "Then I'll kill it before it wakes up." He moved, supersonic speed, crossing the laboratory in a fraction of a second. His eyes fired. Twin beams of concentrated energy aimed at the incubation tank. Sinister raised one hand. The laser beams stopped. Homelander froze mid-flight, suspended in the air by invisible force. He struggled, thrashed, but couldn't move. Telekinetic power held him like an insect in amber. "Did you truly believe," Sinister said, walking casually down from his platform, "that I would allow you to destroy 3 weeks of work? That I wouldn't account for your impulsive violence?" "Let me go!" Homelander's voice was raw rage and, underneath, something he'd never admit: fear. "Gladly." Sinister flicked his hand. Homelander flew backward, crashing through equipment and slamming into the concrete wall hard enough to crack it. He recovered immediately, launching himself at Sinister with murder in his glowing eyes. Sinister caught him telekinetically again, this time slamming him into the floor. Then the ceiling, then the floor again. Each impact would have killed a normal human. Homelander just kept getting angrier. "You're strong," Sinister observed, maintaining the psychic assault. "Remarkably so, but strength without discipline is simply thrashing. You've never fought someone who could actually hurt you, have you? Never learned technique because you never needed it. You're a child with a flamethrower, dangerous but ultimately predictable." Homelander roared and unleashed his laser vision in all directions, uncontrolled, desperate. The beams carved through laboratory equipment, melted support columns, shattered incubation tanks. Sinister erected a telekinetic shield that deflected the energy harmlessly. "Temper tantrums won't..." The ceiling exploded. Queen Maeve dropped through, landing between Homelander and Sinister with sword drawn. "Enough!" she shouted. "Both of you!" Sinister released Homelander, who crashed to his knees, panting. The Supe looked up at Maeve with unmasked hatred. "He's making weapons against us. He needs to die." "And you're destroying a civilian facility," Maeve countered, "creating exactly the kind of PR nightmare Stan warned about. We take him alive. Let Vought's legal team..." "Your legal team is irrelevant," Sinister interrupted. "As is this conversation. My work here is complete." He pressed a button on his wrist device. The central incubation tank began draining, nutrient fluid evacuating through floor vents. Inside, the anti-Homelander's eyes opened. "No!" Maeve lunged toward the tank. Sinister hit her with a telekinetic blast that sent her crashing into Homelander. The two Supes tangled together, and by the time they separated, the tank was empty and its occupant was standing. The anti-Homelander, Butcher's enhanced doppelganger, assessed its surroundings with cold intelligence. Its gaze settled on Homelander, and something like recognition flickered across its features. Recognition and hatred. "Kill him," Sinister commanded. The creation moved. It crossed the laboratory faster than Homelander expected, driving a fist into his jaw with enough force to actually stagger him. Homelander responded with a wild haymaker that the creation slipped, countering with a combination that drove America's greatest hero backward. "It's not possible," Homelander gasped, blocking a strike that cracked his forearm. "Nothing's as strong as me." "Incorrect," Sinister said, watching his creation fight with scientific interest. "You're simply the strongest Vought has produced, but I don't work for Vought." The anti-Homelander grabbed Homelander in a bear hug and flew upward, smashing through the remaining floors and erupting into the night sky. Maeve watched them go, two superhuman figures grappling at 500 feet, trading blows that lit up the darkness. She turned to Sinister. "Call it off. Whatever vendetta you have against Homelander, this isn't the way." "I have no vendetta," Sinister replied. "Only curiosity about whether artificial enhancement can match natural evolution. Your compound V versus my genetic mastery. Homelander versus my creation. It's a fascinating experiment. It's murder. It's science." Sinister began backing toward a secondary exit. "And speaking of which, I should depart. Vaught's other assets will arrive shortly, and while I'm confident in my abilities, fighting multiple superhuman teams seems unnecessarily risky." Maeve moved to intercept him, and found she couldn't. Her body locked in place, muscles refusing to obey. Telepathic control, subtle but absolute. "Apologies," Sinister said, "but I've grown rather fond of my continued existence. Do give my regards to Stan Edgar. Tell him his compound V formula, while crude, provided excellent baseline data. My next generation of enhancements will be truly spectacular." He disappeared through a dimensional portal that opened and closed in seconds. Technology or power, Maeve couldn't tell. Above, Homelander and the anti-Homelander's battle raged across the sky. Laser vision met regenerating flesh. Superhuman strength clashed with enhanced durability. And for the first time in his life, Homelander was fighting something that might actually kill him. The facility's alarm screamed, emergency services approached, and Maeve stood alone in the wreckage, paralyzed by Sinister's telepathy, watching her world's greatest hero possibly meet his match. All according to one geneticist's design. The battle above New Jersey lit the night sky like a second dawn. Homelander's laser vision carved red lines through the darkness, missing more often than hitting as the anti-Homelander moved with tactical precision Homelander had never needed to learn. Each time the beams found their mark, the creation's enhanced healing factor knitted flesh back together within seconds. Burn damage faded. Wounds closed. The thing just kept coming. "What are you?" Homelander screamed, grabbing his opponent and trying to fly higher, planning to drop it from terminal altitude. The anti-Homelander spoke for the first time. Its voice was Butcher's, rough, sardonic, filled with absolute contempt. "I'm what happens when someone builds a supe right. No corporate compromise, no profit margins. Just pure function." It head-butted Homelander hard enough to break the hero's nose. Blood sprayed. Homelander's blood, visible and shocking against his pale skin. The Supes stared at it in disbelief. "I'm bleeding," he whispered. "Yeah, you are." The anti-Homelander smiled. Butcher's smile designed for maximum psychological damage. "And you're going to bleed a lot more before this is over." It drove both fists into Homelander's ribs. Something cracked. Homelander gasped, the pain unprecedented, terrifying. He'd been shot, stabbed, bombed. Nothing had ever actually hurt before. But this enhanced clone was breaking him. They fell together, grappling, trading blows that would level buildings. Homelander's training, decades of choreographed fights for cameras, staged rescues. Theatrical heroism meant nothing against an opponent designed specifically to counter him. The anti-Homelander fought like a soldier, efficient, brutal, targeting weaknesses Homelander didn't know he had. They crashed into the Passaic River, impact creating a waterspout visible from Manhattan. Underwater, Homelander tried using his laser vision in the murkiness. The anti-Homelander adapted, using the poor visibility to its advantage, striking from angles Homelander couldn't defend. They surfaced simultaneously, both gasping. The anti-Homelander showed damage, burns, contusions, one arm hanging at a wrong angle, but it was healing, rapidly. Homelander's injuries were healing too, but slower, and the accumulated damage was adding up. "You can't win," Homelander panted. "I'm Homelander, I'm perfect." "I'm obsolete," the anti-Homelander finished. It rushed forward, and the beating continued. On the ground, emergency vehicles surrounded the facility. Vaught's tactical teams secured the perimeter while medical personnel extracted Queen Maeve from the wreckage. She'd finally regained motor control as Sinister's telepathic influence faded, but she'd been trapped for precious minutes while the battle escalated. Status: Madeline Stillwell emerged from an armored SUV, flanked by private security. Homelanders engaged with an unknown superhuman, the tactical commander reported. Power levels comparable to his own. They've been fighting for 7 minutes. Considerable property damage to the surrounding area, but no civilian casualties yet. Yet, Madeline repeated grimly. She looked up at the distant figures clashing in the sky. "Where's Sinister?" "Gone," Maeve reported, accepting a blanket from medics, despite not needing it. "Portal, teleportation, something. He opened a doorway and disappeared. But before he left," she swallowed, "he said this was just an experiment, testing whether his enhancements could match our Compound 5. "And?" Madeline demanded. Maeve gestured upward. Homelander was falling, actually falling unconscious or stunned, before catching himself at the last moment and rocketing back up to continue fighting. "I'd say his experiment is succeeding," Maeve said quietly. Madeline pulled out her phone, dialed Stan Edgar. He answered immediately. "The situation?" Stan asked. "Contained, but catastrophic. Sinister's creation is fighting Homelander to a standstill. We need extraction protocols, media blackout, and possibly a story about training exercises gone wrong. Training exercises that involve Homelander bleeding in the sky above New Jersey," Stan said dryly. "That will be challenging to spin. What's the probability Homelander wins this engagement?" Madeline watched the battle. Homelander was slowing, his movements less precise. The anti-Homelander just kept coming, relentless as a machine. "Unknown," she admitted. "Sir, what if he loses?" The pause on Stan's end stretched long enough that Madeline wondered if they'd been disconnected. "Then we adapt," Stan finally said. "Have medical teams ready for extraction. If Homelander falls, I want him recovered immediately and taken to our secure medical facility. No media access, no public statement until we understand the full damage. And if the creation comes after our teams, then we negotiate. If it was designed by Sinister with Butcher's psychological profile, it has a singular purpose, eliminating Homelander. Once that objective is achieved, it may be reasoned with. Offer it anything it wants, money, immunity, even a position within Vought if necessary. You'd hire the thing that just nearly killed our flagship hero." "I'd hire whatever maintains our market position," Stan corrected. "Sentiment is expensive, Madeline. Survival is profitable. Make the call based on what preserves Vought, not what preserves Homelander." He disconnected. Madeline stared at her phone, processing the implications. Stan Edgar was already planning for a post-Homelander world, already calculating how to monetize whatever killed him. Above, the battle reached its crescendo. Homelander unleashed everything, laser vision at maximum intensity, superhuman strength pushed beyond limits, flight speed that created sonic booms. He battered the anti-Homelander with desperate fury, no longer fighting to win but simply to survive. The anti-Homelander endured, took the punishment, healed through it. And when Homelander finally exhausted himself, when his laser eyes flickered and dimmed, when his legendary strength faltered, the anti-Homelander grabbed him by the throat. "This is for Rebecca," it said in Butcher's voice. "This is for everyone you've killed, everyone you failed, every person who died because you cared more about being loved than being good." It pulled back its fist. "Wait!" The shout came from below. Billy Butcher himself, standing on the facility's roof, flanked by the boys. He'd been watching from a safe distance, but now he was staring at his own enhanced face, about to murder Homelander. The anti-Homelander paused, looked down at its genetic template. Some flicker of recognition crossed its features. Programmed loyalty to its creator's DNA, perhaps, or simply curiosity. "Don't kill him," Butcher called up. "Not yet. Not like this." "Why?" the creation asked, genuinely confused. "This was my purpose, your purpose, our purpose." "Because if you kill him now, he becomes a martyr," Butcher said, the lie coming easily. "But if we let him live, broken, beaten, humiliated, he becomes a cautionary tale, proof that Supes aren't invincible. That's worth more than his death." The anti-Homelander considered this. Its grip on Homelander's throat loosened slightly. "Besides," Butcher continued, "Sinister's gone, portaled out before you even finished waking up. You really want to complete his experiment for him? Be his fucking lab rat? Or you want to choose your own path?" It was manipulation, transparent, obvious. But it worked. The creation had been programmed with Butcher's psychology, which meant it understood being used, understood resenting it. It released Homelander. America's greatest hero fell, unconscious, broken. Maeve launched herself upward, catching him before he hit the ground. The anti-Homelander watched them descend, then turned its gaze to Butcher. "What am I supposed to do now?" it asked. "If not kill him, what's my purpose?" Butcher grinned, the same grin now worn by the creation. "Whatever the fuck you want, mate. You're free. No vote, no corporate masters, no destiny except what you choose. That's the gift I'm giving you, the gift Sinister never had planned." The anti-Homelander floated there, processing this new concept. Freedom, choice, agency beyond programmed hatred. "I'll be watching," it finally said. "If Homelander returns to what he was, if he kills again, hurts innocents, I'm coming back to finish this." "Fair enough," Butcher agreed. The creation flew away, disappearing into the night sky, its destination unknown, its future unwritten. Butcher turned to his team. "Time to go. Vaught's going to lock this place down in about 30 seconds. They fled, leaving behind chaos and questions. On the ground, Madeline coordinated the emergency response. Medical teams swarmed Homelander's broken body. Security established a perimeter. PR teams began crafting the narrative that would somehow explain this to a watching world. And Queen Maeve stood apart from it all, staring at the sky where both Homelander and his doppelganger had disappeared. For the first time in years, she felt something like hope. The world changed in the 3 weeks following the New Jersey incident. Homelander survived, though survived was a generous term. His physical injuries healed, Compound V's regenerative properties were still remarkable, but something inside him had broken permanently. The invincible hero had been beaten, humiliated, made to bleed in front of witnesses. Vaught's PR machine worked overtime, crafting stories about secret experiments and rogue Sith assets. But the truth leaked anyway. It always did. Homelander was beatable. That knowledge rippled through the superhuman community like a shockwave. Other Supes started pushing boundaries, testing limits. Vought's controls slipped. Stock prices continued falling. Congressional hearings began in earnest, with Senator Newman demanding full disclosure about Compound V's development and distribution. The Seven underwent restructuring. Homelander remained the figurehead, too valuable as a brand despite his diminished mystique. But real authority shifted to Queen Maeve and a newly appointed team of advisors who were really handlers. The era of unquestioned superhuman supremacy was over. Mister Sinister vanished completely. No sightings, no communications, no trace of his genetic experiments beyond the anti-Homelander. Intelligence agencies across 3 continents searched for him, but the Victorian geneticist had presumably returned to his own dimension or moved on to other projects. He'd gotten what he came for: data on Compound Vi, successful testing of his enhancement techniques, and proof that artificial superhuman creation could be perfected beyond this world's corporate limitations. Somewhere in his laboratory, wherever that now existed, he was already designing the next generation. The boys continued their crusade, though with new complications. They'd proven Supes could be challenged, but they'd also unleashed something potentially more dangerous than Homelander. The anti-Homelander remained at large, occasionally appearing in news reports when some corrupt Supe needed immediate attitude adjustment. It never killed. Butcher's final manipulation had taken root, but it reminded the world that power could be challenged. Butcher himself felt strangely hollow. He'd achieved his revenge fantasy, seen Homelander broken, bleeding, afraid, and found it less satisfying than expected. The anti-Homelander wore his face but wasn't him. The victory felt borrowed, hollow. He'd changed the world, but he couldn't change what drove him. Rebecca was still dead. That would never change. In secure facilities across America, geneticists studied the traces Sinister had left behind. The degraded pathogen from the Javits Center, cellular samples from the anti-Homelander collected at the battle site, data fragments recovered from his abandoned laboratories. They were reverse engineering his work, trying to understand the principles that let an outsider improve on decades of Compound Vi research in mere weeks. Some hoped to cure superhuman instability. Others sought to create better controlled weapons. A few understood they were opening doors that probably should stay closed. The anti-Homelander itself remained the greatest mystery. It had Butcher's memories, but not his experiences, his hatred, but not his history. It was something new in the world, a designed being with free will, created for purpose, but choosing its own path, somewhere between human and super, original and copy, weapon and individual. It thought often about its creator, both of them. Butcher, who'd given it genetics and purpose, Sinister, who'd given it capabilities and potential, and it wondered whether it was truly free or simply acting out programming so sophisticated it felt like choice. On quiet nights, it would find rooftops in cities Homelander no longer dared patrol alone and wonder what it meant to be real. Vought International survived because corporations always survived. They adapted, restructured, rebranded. The Seven became the Seven, New Era. Marketing emphasized accountability, oversight, transparency, all lies, but convincing ones. Stock prices stabilized, quarterly earnings recovered. The machine kept running. But the myth was dead. Homelander had bled, and everyone had seen it. Supes were products, not gods. Dangerous products, sometimes defective, always corporate-controlled. The illusion of divine heroism that Vought had sold for decades crumbled, and no amount of PR could fully restore it. In the end, Mister Sinister had accomplished something neither the boys nor Vought fully understood. He demonstrated that superhuman power was ultimately just biology. Complex, dangerous, fascinating biology, but biology nonetheless. Not magic, not destiny, not divine mandate, just genetics that could be understood, replicated, improved, and ultimately surpassed. The question wasn't whether humanity would master superhuman creation. The question was what they'd create once they did, and whether those creations would be more human than the corporate gods they replaced. Somewhere, in a dimension the boys' universe couldn't reach, Mister Sinister smiled and began his next experiment. The collision between worlds had ended. The consequences were just beginning. May the Force be with you. More stories await.